Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Coffee Break. It's Steve Barrett here, the editorial director of PR Week. I'm here with Bob Osmond, who's the president of Racepoint Group, Racepoint Global, sorry Bob. Welcome to the show, and you took on your new role as president about a year ago, and so you got a new job in lockdown, yeah?
I did indeed. In fact, let's see, just over a year, in my 13th month, and I would say I have met only 5 potentially of my entire team, and that was through the interview process. And then, of course, Larry and I had agreed that I would join the team, and then lockdown happened, and here we are. So there are 60 plus
Larry Weber,
Larry Weber, yes,
CEO and president,
exactly,
chairman of Racepoint Global.
That's correct. So there are about 59 other people who only know me as a little square on a screen, and that's how I know them. And so I don't know when we actually re-enter. That may be a little bit much for them. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we've all been dealing with that. I think we actually are planning potentially a trip to the office because so we've got people who come on board haven't even been to the office and we haven't met them, and then we'll go and maybe have a drink afterwards.
Yeah.
You might even be able to hear some soundtrack in the background of my cat meowing. So sorry about that. But
that's nice. What's the cat's name?
That is Tess. We've got 2. Our cat sadly died during lockdown, so we've got Tess and Tamla.
2 very British names.
I wanted Tesla and Tamla, but my wife wouldn't let me name a cat after the tech broke. But anyway, this is about you, not me.
Well, I have no cats with me, I'm afraid to say. But
yeah, but you were in New York. You've worked at a number of holding company agencies and independent agencies. Tomorrow, you had some time at Conan Wolf. So you've seen both sides of the agency world. And how are you going to handle it? Because Racepoint's main office is in Boston. You were in New York, but where are you going to land when you do sort of eventually, when we come out of this?
Well, so right now the plan is for me to Homebase is going to be New York. I expect that I'll spend time in Boston, probably a couple of days, a week or so. My guess is we have folks in San Francisco, we have folks in Raleigh, we have a couple of people in London. So what's interesting to your point earlier about starting in the middle of a lockdown is that this screen for me is Racepoint Global. So when I look at my team, I see people who work for Racepoint Global, unless of course I now know where they all live and work, but at that point, it didn't matter to me if people lived in Boston, Raleigh, San Francisco, London, they were all the same to me. And what's interesting is that one of the things that I learned was a potential challenge for me as I came on board was to create this sense of community of one agency. And so you mentioned that, I worked for other holding company agencies, et cetera. And I've worked for those where there's a headquarters office and there's everybody else. And that can create some sense of exclusion, let's say, for those who aren't at the mothership. And so one of the, I guess, unintended consequences of all of this is that now we're more united as an agency than I think Racepoint Global's ever been.
Yeah, and how do you see it panning out when people do return to a physical office environment? What's the hybrid work environment going to look like? I think everyone's thinking about that now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, for us, our default position is flexibility. So it'll depend on where people are and what their comfort level is. So for example, our Boston office has been open pretty much since May. And we've given people the options to go in.
May of last year.
Yeah. We've given people the option to go. We have all the safety protocols. We've done everything we were meant to do. And on any given day, there might be 3 people who opt to go in because of whatever reason. So I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan with my wife. We both work there. So for some folks, they want to go in and get away from their apartment, get a change of scenery. But for many, they're happy to just keep working. So I think our default is flexibility. we will look at what people's preference is. And really the only reason to determine that is just to be clear about what level of support we have to give them from an IT and a physical space kind of perspective. But my MO is trust our people, give them the tools to be successful. And at the beginning of this year, when we talked through what our goals for the year were, I said 3 things: autonomy, accountability, and growth. That's what we're focused on. So the interesting thing for a lot of people, I think, through this whole process has been figuring out how to manage a situation where they went from not necessarily a command and control mentality, but people were all in a physical space and now they're not, to how they actually put into action what we're telling them they can do. Take care of yourself, make sure you're taking care of your mental well-being. Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting out for a walk? It's hard for people to trust that that's true, I think. And so we've really been focused on this mantra of just be flexible and be accountable, and everything will take care of itself.
Yeah. Now, it's fair to say it's been a topsy-turvy few years for Racepoint. I mean, looking back 5 years, the agency did 29 million, I think, in 2016. Last year you did 12 million, and you were down 23% from the year prior. It was a well-documented incident with the CFO being charged with embezzlement, etc. So the agency's had to, and the leadership has changed. You've come in a year ago. How do you rebuild? It was a 170-person agency. Now it's 60 or 70 people. What's your strategy for rebuilding and getting Racepoint back to its former sort of glories?
So when Larry Weber and I first started speaking, I was obviously aware of the challenges that the agency had. And you and I have both been doing this a long time. We know that agencies go through cycles, and it just happens. It's part of the business. But it's fair to say, yes, topsy-turvy is a good way to put it. So my perspective, and I think why Larry and I agreed that ultimately this was the right move, is I said we just have to focus on our talent first. Let us get our people to feel that the business we were creating, the agency we were creating, is the place where they can do good work, and just get them feeling like we have a solid foundation. And so that's been my focus. First and foremost has been focus on talent and culture. And when my very first town hall meeting with everyone, I think that was April 6th of 2020, I said, I know you're not going to believe me, but I'm just telling you, I am here to serve you. And there's a lot of skeptics. And I laid out with my senior leadership team some very simple core values: authenticity, belonging, and compassion. That's what we're going to build this agency on. And some core behaviors that I think are critical to being successful in this work. So you have to be curious. So I told people, if you're not bringing your curiosity to work every day, then you're probably in the wrong line of work. You have to embrace a service mindset. And that's not like client service, client always right mindset. That's like, I am part of something bigger than myself. And probably most important, you have to have a growth mindset, which is that everything we do, we're going to assume that it's possible. And we're going to learn from mistakes, and it's not going to be perfect. There's probably going to be some ugliness about it. But I was just very clear with them. I said, look, I know you've had a tough few years, and the agency's had a tough few years, but there's so much good to build on. I mean, just as an example, I think, I don't want to get the number wrong, but 30% of our clients have been with us for more than 4 years. So clearly, aside from what you read in the headlines and some of the challenges of not so good people taking advantage of certain situations, the work has been good. And that's what I told people. You're doing good work. Let's just build on the foundation. And my job is to create a space where you can feel good about coming to work or not coming to work every day.
And what are the sectors and practice areas that you're specializing in and that you want to sort of build that growth upon?
So we've always been a B2B technology firm. That's been our bread and butter for a long time. We've done lots of consumer work from a device perspective and connected home and all of that, but B2B technology is our sweet spot. We've done a lot of healthcare work over the past several years. For example, telehealth, telemedicine, that diagnostics, that kind of, but underpinning all of that has been the foundation of technology. Embedded technology, a lot of chip related work. We do 5G wireless protocols. So essentially we're in the crux of it, but as you well know, I mean, even today, when you say you're in technology PR, everything is technology.
Tech, yeah.
We all say this, right? But it's true, and it's less B2B ultimately as everything is B2B to C, because at some point someone is experiencing something that is powered by technology. Yeah. So we're in that space.
What are the tech trends then that you expect to see during the rest of the year? We've all, bought Roombas. We've all had to upgrade our technology, our cameras, our internet, our microphones. We've all been, using different entertainment devices. Gaming's been on the up. We've seen the rise of Bitcoin, Dogecoin, all these sort of things, NFTs. What are you seeing? What trends do you expect to play out over the rest of the year from the tech front?
The one thing that I'm really interested in is, so it's so funny because so many of these conversations that we've been having through this acceleration, I mean, we've been talking about these for 10, 15 years. So telemedicine is a great example of one that was originated many, many years ago. 100 years ago when I worked with IDX Systems, they had a telemedicine platform and everybody thought, what is this? Who's going to go to the doctor this way? So what I'm interested in particular is both how we swing the pendulum back to this being the default position and using different technologies to help people make choices about when they should do certain things. So I think AI is going to continue to be a massive focus for many people. We do a lot of work with clients in the AI space. Some of them are transforming agriculture. Some of them are engaged in the construction industry. So I do think that sort of machine learning is going to continue to be fundamental. And I'll be interested to see it take root in the enterprise so that we can make better decisions rather than just default decisions about, oh, yes, we'll do a Zoom, or, oh, yes, let's do this. I think that's an interesting space in terms of optimizing people's resources.
And you must have a good, there's a slight tension it seems to me, between the West Coast and the East Coast, the tech world, the mainstream media world, getting at it a bit. And, you're seeing people like Andreessen Horowitz setting up their own media channels and going direct. What's your take on that from a tech point of view and a tech journalism point of view?
Well, I think we saw a long time ago this belief that every company is a media company. Right? And brands recognized that they needed to invest energy and time into building out a good content approach. While yes, there's some channel tension, we know that earned media still is amongst the most trusted sources of information for people. Earned media, company websites still, oddly. I mean, social media is, while we're all addicted to it, it's still not a trusted source insofar as earned media still is, even in a context of coming out of years of abuse of the free press and discussions of fake news, et cetera. So there will always be, I think, a hunger for that juried conversation, and so brands will do both. And I don't see it as competitive. I mean, one of the things that I think actually helps agencies like ours is the tremendous amount of work that's being done around brand purpose and building purposeful narratives and getting clear on, to quote Simon Sinek, why you're doing what you do. And we're seeing a lot of conversations just within our shop with clients who recognize, we need to crisp up what our real purpose is.
All right, Bob. Well, good to catch up. Good luck with the task at Racepoint, and looking forward to seeing what you do with it and meeting up in person one day. And I guess you're looking forward to meeting your staff in person as well.
Yes, indeed. They may not be, but I am.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on Coffee Break.
I appreciate it, Steve. Take good care.